Hello, beautiful women, and thank you for being here today, and especially for such an important subject to be broaching and just discussing and bringing more awareness to. So, this is the first time that I've actually written notes for something, and I think because it's very, very deep and meaningful to me, and because it's really affected and influenced my life. And I never knew how much until I awoken. And I feel that in society, especially, we have this thing called the Sleeping Beauty syndrome. And for me, it is when patriarchy society, the influence of media, influence of the masculine, and the domination of what that's created in our society, where women have forgotten, ignored, and suppressed their true gifts, abilities, their femininity, their sensuality, their sexuality, owning all of who they are. So patriarchy, when you look in Google, it's a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. And it is still so prevalent in today's society. You can see it in businesses, you can see it in families, you can see it in governments. It's still very prevalent, and it's unfortunate because we're in the modern society, yet still women are still valued less and seen as, I don't want to say not as, they are seen less than and not as valued. So for me, I started researching about this and found that for over 2,000 years, this has been something that's been happening in our world and our cultures, that women started to be feared. And what I found, and what I've also investigated, is that when people are fearful, they start getting angry. And when they get angry, it leads to them acting the way that they would not usually do, because something is triggering them, something is frightening them, and so they act violent. And this is in a way where we can see where women are being abused, where they're being raped, where they're being, back in the day where women were burned as witches because they had, the foretelling, or they were able to heal, or they're able to, see things that men could not. And this power was feared. And so fear led to anger, anger led to violence, and the murder of many, many hundreds of millions of women all around the world. And it's still happening today in lesser ways, but still in ways where women are being suppressed. And how that has affected us as women in today's modern society is that we have dimmed ourselves, we have suppressed our gifts, and we have forgotten our worth. And when we forget our worth, we forget that we are capable. We forget that to put our needs first, and so we self-sacrifice. And what we're doing when we're doing this is that we're role modeling that not only to our husbands, our children, our friends, our family, our work colleagues, and our employees, if we're an employer, we're putting our values out into the world. So when we're allowing ourselves to be dimmed, when we're allowing ourselves to be ignored, when we're allowing ourselves to be suppressed, we are also teaching others to do the same. And if you have daughters or you have sons, you're teaching that to them as well. And this is where it gets to the point where we have to understand that to want equality is one thing, but to live it is another. And this is where we need to bridge the gap, is that we may talk and say we want one thing, but what actions are we taking to get that equality? Are you actually self-aware of what you need, how to prioritize yourself, how to know when you're dimming yourself, when you are being quiet because you do not want to create a reaction in another person? It is us women who need to change this, because yes, men have created this, but let's just also think about it in another way. When we think of the masculine, let's just not think of a man. Let's think of an energy. Same with the feminine. It's not just a female, it's an energy. We all have that both within us. And so when we can see the masculine is over energy, and just like with any holistic modality, say Ayurveda, naturopathy, homeopathy, what happens when we're in over energy? We create disease within our body. And this is what's happened in our world. And over energy of masculine has created greed, it's created war, it's created all these awful diseases within our society. And so there's always a remedy for this over energy. But again, we have to be the ones to start doing it within ourselves. Like, we can't go out and heal the world today. We can't. We know we can't. But what we can do is heal our world. So by balancing that energy within ourselves. So when we as women are showing up, or even men, Usually women, we over energy masculine because we're working and living in a male-dominated industry or area, and even at home. So for me, I worked in a male-dominated industry for over 15 years. And in that, I was harassed. I was always looked upon because of my looks or shape, and men thought that they could have a say on what I looked like or how I acted. And so I really, really stopped myself from being a feminine, and I went into my masculine. And so I wore more masculine clothes, I spoke more masculine, I swore with them, you know, I bantered like a male, because that's how I was equal to them in their environment. But what I didn't understand was I was disempowering myself, and I was disconnected from my femininity. And so going through this journey of having my breakdown that's led to my breakthrough, it's allowed me to see that how that over masculine has always got me to a place of anxiety. That push, that forcing and that making things happen and just not allowing any flow in was really against my nature. But that's the way I was brought up in this world, to be in that masculine energy. And again, like I said, that caused disease within myself. And so allowing myself to go on the journey of self-love, self-discovery, and self-healing, I allowed the feminine energy back into myself. I started balancing that within me, and I started loving those things that I once pushed aside or suppressed because I was fearful of what it might mean if a man took advantage of that. And so allowing myself to connect to both the masculine and feminine, I have to say I did go extreme feminine, and I did that in my business. I only had women coaches, I only surrounded myself with women. But what I found too is that when we're too feminine, we are in this beautiful flow, but we forget to take action, or we feel fearful of taking action. We get fearful of asking for a monetary return for our services. We get fearful of saying how good we are at something, and we ignore that. So even if we go too feminine, we can go out of balance in that way, and we start losing that confidence to show up in the world in a way that we can be of service. So coming back to that is that I in the last year have been really connecting in and how to balance that. And it's by allowing that masculine in with different mentors or different people within my life that I value to come in and support me in grounding in that my masculine, which being able to take action, being able to move forward, being able to think on the spot, being able to be really confident in my work. Whereas then the feminine came in and it was more flowing, it was more gentle and more heart-centered. So merging them together has allowed me to create a nurturing space for other women. And now I have a group that I'm a partner with for over 1,300 mums in business. And that's enabling me to help these women also to do that. Because right now, a lot of them are in the over-masculine or in an area where a man is really dominating their life. So they're not allowing themselves to step up in their business. They're feeling that they feel guilty if they spend time, energy, or money on themselves, or they're actually just disconnected to their truth because a man in their life has told them that no, you cannot do something. So this is something that we have ingrained in ourselves, something that society has definitely ingrained, but something we can heal, something we can shift so our next generations don't have to go through this. And this is where it's really exciting because it's a choice. It's a choice when we wake up every morning to value what both parts of ourselves are and not to judge any one part, and to know that together we can create harmony. And with my husband even, he was very in the over-masculine, expecting me to cook and clean and be the wife, and then I was, running a business as well as trying to contract and all these kind of things, and I was trying to juggle everything because I wanted to be the perfect wife. I wanted to be the perfect mother. But in return, what I ended up being was nothing to no one, because I was so empty and disconnected. So honouring this part of our journey is a great thing, but having compassion to know where we're at, to understand that if we do have the over-masculine in one area, whether it is a husband or within ourselves, that we have to be the ones to create the change. We have to be the ones to teach our partners, our children, our friends, our family, all that and so on. Because what happens when we be the role model and we create that change is that we see the change in others. We see them being kinder and more compassionate to themselves. They start healing. They start honouring both sexes more equally. By me teaching my son that a woman is just as equal to you, and that to create a home, it means the husband can help out, the husband can clean, the husband can have his kids, not look after his kids, because he's not a babysitter, he's a dad. So understanding that was a huge thing for me, and it changed my relationship with my husband, because I always had him up on the pedestal because I never felt good enough. And I was always trying to earn my worth by being everything he needed. And again, it was such a disconnected and unfulfilled life because I was trying to be something for someone else. But this is, again, like I said, tomorrow you can wake up and go, I choose me. And how can you choose you when you start in this world? It's just by your thoughts to start with. It's your mindset. How are you treating yourself? How are you looking at yourself in the mirror? What are you seeing when you look back at you? Are you looking at a woman who has done everything she can to possibly survive, to be in this present moment, and to love all of that, even though you feel you've made mistakes or you failed? You never have, because you're still here today and you get to make the choice to change today as well. It's in this moment that you can embrace your empowerment. It's in this moment you can embrace your gifts and start letting them shine through instead of suppressing them, regardless of who's around you. Because it is up to you to make the change that you want to see in this world. And I have to say that yes, the times are changing. We no longer are being burnt at the stake, so to speak. So we have this moment in time where we can seriously create a movement of empowered women. And I started in my small town starting a movement, and it's been very difficult to start with. It takes a long time to create change, especially if it's ingrained in people to be a certain way. But how you do this, how you create something in a space that no one really knows or cares about or thinks that, you know, it's not for them, is that you start walking your talk. You start showing up every day, talking your truth, showing your gifts, and regardless of the judgment, you still do it anyway. Because no matter what you do in your life, you will be judged. It's just part of it. It's part of society. It's what we do. And so taking away being fearful of judgment and you showing up and being your true self, creating a movement is going to be the most magical thing you can do. It could be just with your children every day. It could be just making sure that they're equally loved and equally supported. It could be showing them that women are beautiful in their feminine way and that they can love their bodies, they can love their hair and their movement, but also love their ability to be strong and choose the path of life they want. And then within the boys, let them feel their emotions, let them cry, let them experience all their range of feelings, because we need to stop men feeling disconnected from their emotions. We need to stop allowing society to say, stop crying, stop showing emotions, you're not a man. Have a, you know, in Australia they say have a teaspoon of cement and harden up. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's just so awful because our young men who are so emotionally connected and nurturing and beautiful get shut down. My brother, we come from a very hard background. My dad was a drover from out west, so they used to muster cattle. I don't know if you know what that is, but they used to work out west, and it was a very hard life. So my brother, who was very emotionally and very intuitive and very connected, was shut down to a point where he doesn't ever show his emotions, where he just disconnects and he just suppresses, and he's a very unhappy person because of it. So could you imagine if we nurtured that within our men, that femininity, that feminine energy of emotions and expressing in a beautiful way, because we allow that healthy balance to come through. We allow a healthy change to be within our children, and we create a more empowered and expressive and connected and collaborative space, because people are no longer so unhappy. If we have people who can express themselves, can you imagine how much happier you are? Because you don't have that baggage holding you down. And so when we allow this to happen, we get these empowered people empowering people, and it just becomes a spiraling and growing effect, and it becomes like a ripple throughout the world. So that is my take on how we have, as women and as men, have been ingrained with this patriarchy society. But remember, like when I first said that we were under the sleeping beauty syndrome, we're all, you know, asleep. Allow yourself to awaken. I really believe that this conference has awakened so many, and already a lot of beautiful people were already awakened. But to start sharing that message of that you don't have to be like this. Life doesn't have to be, you have to fit into a box or a mold. You can be whatever it is that your heart desires, as long as you believe in yourself and you create that supportive environment. Because every day you have a choice, every day you can choose you. The way that you treat yourself and others is your choice. So if I can leave you with anything, is that the way to heal your heart, to find the balance, is to listen to yourself every single day. You have all the answers within you. That's your inner compass. That is what will guide you to your true happiness. And so if you just allow that to happen, you will achieve the success that you've ever always wanted, but you'll always find true fulfillment and love that you deserve and need. So thank you so much, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon. That was wonderful, Tammy, and I think I agree with all that you said. And it's just so overwhelming that the issue is the same everywhere. Most of the times, we as Indians, we think that, patriarchy and this entire system, it's a huge issue in India. But like I said, it's overwhelming to know that it's the same. And it has a positive side to it, because we can fight the same issue together, right? So, and when we know that this issue is prevalent everywhere, might as well work on solutions that have worked elsewhere. So yes, I agree with whatever you said, but I want to start with one little exercise, because barring two people, we are all women in the room, and I want to ask the women in the room to just shout qualities that make a good woman. What makes a good woman? When I ask this question, what are the qualities that come to your mind?
Go-getter.
Go-getter.
Her capacity for love.
Capacity for love.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Her emotional.
Courage.
Discipline.
Discipline.
Empathy. Perfection.
Empathy. Perfection. Well, this is definitely an enlightened lot. Trust me, if I would have done the same exercise somewhere else, these are the qualities that we should have as a human being, right? Not a woman or a man or anyone else, be it any gender, any sex, any orientation, any class, any creed, any nationality. So yes, this definitely is an enlightened lot, and the answers that I got are beautiful. But if I would have done this exercise somewhere else, be it a college or be it a school or be it any other organization, the answers I would have got is, oh, she should be a caretaker, she should love her kids, she should be a homemaker, she should be a good wife, she should also probably take care of her career. So these are the little stereotypes that are ingrained in us. And you already talked about a broader picture, but I would talk per se about the Indian culture and how I have felt that patriarchy is ingrained among women as much as it is in men, and probably even more because we are the gatekeepers, especially in a culture like India. It is passed on from a woman to a woman. I don't remember my dad telling me to take care of the length of my dress or to learn how to cook before I get married, but I know n number of instances when my mom has told me that, it's now time. It's great that you are a media professional, you have your own ventures, but what about cooking? Ultimately you have to get married, and if you don't know that, that's going to be an issue. So yeah, we correct and we teach our daughters more, and I'm so glad you talked about raising our children right, because just yesterday I was talking about how we need to rewrite our fairy tales. That was one session that I was speaking for. And everyone was talking about how our Cinderellas and our Sleeping Beauties, and these need to be rewritten with a gender perspective. But I also told that, these stories also need to be rewritten for our men, because our men are always Prince Charming. They are the one who have the responsibility to rescue us always. So it is flawed somewhere. And that's where the upbringing part comes into picture. So that's one, definitely. And that, I think, also lies among the women, because when they raise the children right, and if they pass on the patriarchy, it's going to be passed on generation after generation. The second point, which again I want to pick from what you said, is that it is ingrained among women so strong that we are always guilty of taking care of our own selves. You rightly said that, it's time we love our own self, we choose ourselves, but if we do that, we are guilty. Oh God, I spent 1 hour at the beauty parlor, at the spa parlor, taking care of my own self. I could have given that time to my husband, or to my in-laws, or to my child. I had so much to do. I had to cook a good dish, I had to take care of my child's homework. So that also comes into picture when we are talking about how patriarchy is ingrained in women. Another huge role is played by media, and coming from that field, I really don't want that to go untouched. But our TV serials, our Bollywood, our movies, they are also passing this on. They are showing how patriarchy is ingrained in women and then taking it further rather than giving a solution to it. So I think women have the power to be allies of other women, and we are not making use of that completely. So there are many issues that India as a country is facing, be it aborting the girl child, be it dowry, be it don't work, focus on your job, don't do that, or be it honor killing, or be it how you dress or how you behave. All of these are issues that are majorly passed on by women. So I want to share a very personal story, and I am taking that liberty that I'm counting this room as a very safe space to share that story because it's very personal. But it's a very good example of how patriarchy is ingrained in our women here. So I am a radio jockey, a disc jockey as you call in your country. So I work with a very popular radio channel here, and I did that for a couple of years. And it was my new job in a new city, and I just shifted from my hometown, and I was working, and so there was this one specific instance where there's a huge media group here in India. It's called the Times of India Group. So the radio channel that I used to work for is owned by that company. And in my city there was a huge award function that day, and I was a new joinee in a new media house. And I was given the opportunity to host that particular award night. Huge thing for me. And Times of India, the leading newspaper. So the next day, on the page 3, it was a center spread with pictures all over mentioning my name, me hosting it, celebrities from everywhere being in my city, and very proud moment for me. So super happy, super proud. I clicked pictures of the newspaper and I WhatsApped it to my mom, expecting praises and all, blushing. And she called me up saying, hey. I said, yeah. Expecting praises, expecting that she would be equally proud. Not that she wasn't, she was. But the first statement she said is, don't you think the length of your dress is a little short? This happened. So this is just one instance. And I'm sure I'm sharing this because a lot of us relate with this. And there are many such minor issues that we face which we might not even take notice of because, well, it's just normal, it's natural, right? You shouldn't wear short dresses because, well, you're on the newspaper, and then who would give their boy to you if you're wearing such short dresses? So, well, yeah, I think in a nutshell, I very strongly believe that there are a lot of misconceptions about words like patriarchy or feminism. When we talk of our definitions, they are really flawed, and we need to read up a lot. We need to walk with the times and watch everything with a gendered lens or with an adulthood lens, and realize that patriarchy doesn't mean only men, or it doesn't only mean that men are passing it on. It's also about how we raise our generation right. It's also about how, as women, we support other women and stand by them in their issues, and not necessarily that the issues you have faced or the problems you have faced, make sure that the women around you face them. Rather, make sure that the solutions that have worked for you, if you pass them on, that's going to be a better idea. So, well, I think that's it, and because it's a very cozy crowd like we were discussing, we would be more than happy to interact more rather than, standing here and just talking. So, should we just ask if anyone has questions? Please come. Thank you.
We don't have a third speaker.
No, she's not here.
Excuse me, I wanted to share my story.
You want to come here? Please come.
I'm Naburan, and I'm from a very small town in Assam, northeastern India. And I would like to share my story, the story of my family, and how in small nuances, patriarchy is ingrained in our family. But I also consider myself very lucky to have come from a family of working parents. Both my mom and dad are working, and hence the level of patriarchy is very less as compared to the other households in India. Now, I think I'm very lucky because just look at me, I'm wearing heels today. and I'm walking very comfortably, and that's because of the kind of raising that I've got from both my parents. And yes, I won't deny the fact that patriarchy is ingrained in the society, and it's not something that we can do away with in a day, overnight. It won't take place. It's going to take a lot of conditioning to get over with it. Now the stories I want to tell is, since my mother, she's a working woman and she's in the government, and she was never into cooking and all, and I feel very proud saying this, that my grandparents, they never forced my mother to learn cooking. My mom, she still does not cook. Maybe once or twice a year, she'll just, take out a cooking book and cook something, but that's just like once or twice a year. On the other hand, my dad, he's a wonderful cook. And even till date, he's never asked my mom to cook, and he's never asked my sister to cook. If he wants to do the cooking, he does it himself. So there are these dance forms in India. One's Bharatanatyam, the other one is Kathak. And these are very feminine dance forms. And I remember from a very tender age, I wanted to, perform Bharatanatyam and Kathak on stage. And for that, even I had to put heavy makeup. And my mom was always very supportive. And I thought that my dad was going to stop me from doing those on stage in front of a crowd, especially when they were in reputed positions. Everyone knew them in the town. But they never stopped me. And I feel that I am so lucky to have been brought up in under such conditions that they never stopped me from following my dreams. And this is just a small story that I wanted to share. And also, since we are the future of the world, I cannot ignore the fact that my mother does have some bits of patriarchy in her. Like, she does not talk openly about menstruation or periods or something. Like, there was this instance when in a temple my sister was not allowed to enter, and I openly protested against the priest that please let my sister enter. If you don't let her enter, even I'm not entering. And so my parents, they told the priest that please let her enter. And that's how, change comes into the society. You have to fight it yourself. My mom, she did not talk about periods or anything very openly, until one day I had a very open conversation about periods with her over the phone. And now she talks about it very openly. Since my parents are from the previous generation, they don't talk about LGBTQ rights. And I also don't believe that gender is just compartmentalized into male and female. I believe that it's a spectrum and that we should respect all the genders equally. So the other day I was having a conversation with my mom, and I told her, Mom, do you know this girl who's in a neighborhood, she's a lesbian? And she was like, what's a lesbian? And I'm like, okay, let's begin from square one. And I explained to her that, just the way that you love my dad, there could be a woman who could be loving another woman, or there could be a man who's loving another man, or there could be people who can love anyone else. So that's how it starts, if your parents are a bit patriarchal, if they don't talk about things very openly, then you should be the one to initiate these conversations. And trust me, they would be very open about it. So this is just something that I wanted to share, and I believe that it's...
Did anyone else have any questions or share?
Sorry, I have a very bad throat. So, good afternoon to everybody here. It was lovely to listen to what Tammy and Aditi had to say. And after listening to your food stories, a very small, I can say it's something that happened in my life. So I'm married for 2 years, and I met my husband Vibhor at a wedding. It was the first time that I was meeting my mother-in-law, and we still had not decided whether, we'll get married or not. So she asked me a question. So what do you think about my boy? I said, about that I don't know. But yes, probably, there were some conversations happening about who cooks, who doesn't. I said, Auntie, I don't want to answer any of that. But I would just want to tell you that I can't cook. There was silence for 2 minutes, and then she looks at her son and says, Bhai, dekh lo, isko khana wana banana nahi aata. Please see, she doesn't know how to cook. So that's where Vibhor said, it's okay, I know how to cook, she'll do the errands for me. So here, when we talk about patriarchy or any story of our lives, I am lucky to be a part of an ecosystem where I know at least 1% of men who are kind of trying to make that change in our smaller surroundings. So I would only say that wherever we find these kind of men, at least I try to support these men. I try to let them voice things out. I mean, I try, my husband also says, I tell him, that what if I don't want to have a baby? What if, I'm tired, I don't want to work? What if I just move out of the city? He's like, it's okay. I'll be in the house, I'll cook, and you can just work, do whatever you want. Adopt the baby, and I'll be in the house with the doggy and the baby. So I never mock him. I say, hi, you can do it. So I would just want to say to anybody who talks about patriarchy, about this, like the community, that we should support all these kind of men who are doing those initiatives, who are at least saying that yes, they believe in us. That is the only thing I want.
First session that I am attending where people are coming and sharing their stories. So how it is also very important to have that safe space, or that fifth space as I call it, because one is your family, second is your friends, third is your surroundings, probably your work area or wherever you are. The fourth is your home or the surroundings, the immediate circle. But there should be a fifth space, where you can voice out whatever you want to, and you know that you will not be judged. You will not be questioned. Probably there might be questions that can just help you think better, but you will not be questioned, you will not be judged. And it's so important to share these positive stories, because then when we walk out, we would be walking out with a very positive sunshine and a ray of hope. So this is such a beautiful feeling, and thank you so much for coming forward and sharing these personal stories, because it's really beautiful.
And I love that you brought this subject of menstruation up as well, because this is a huge topic and something I was ashamed for a very long time, because my husband, if I ever asked if he was out, so in Australia, it's pretty, men do a little, a bit more sins than in India, but if I asked him to get any of the sanitary items I need, he'd be like, oh my God, I can't get that, it's really gross. And if it was ever that time of the month when I was menstruating, he'd be really reactive to it and very disgusted in that. And it wasn't until I started on this journey that I'm like, I don't want my children to think that this is disgusting. I don't want my daughters to think that this is something to be ashamed of. Because if we look at the truth of what menstrual cycles is, it's the beginning of fertility of life. We create life. So how is this something shameful?
This is something proud of.
Yes, proud, and we praise it and we give thanks for it, because without it, humanity cannot no longer be born. So how is this something? So for me, something I'm very passionate about is to teach young girls to honour this cycle that they come in, and for their transition, because I know in Australia we don't have these transitions or these rituals to go from a young girl to teenager to woman to crone. And we need this, because it's like this, we're missing a part of ourselves, and we don't know how to relate back into those areas. So if we can, in Australia, women's circles are starting to be very big now, and to also have that celebration of when the young girls are turning of age and they're starting their menstrual cycles, and they get a gift and they have a dance and they have a high tea or something, because this is how we change. This is how we create that impact, and to honour all of what it is to be a woman. And same with young boys, it's the same thing. They don't know the difference. It's more acceptable to be, a man in Australia and to, go through those transitions. But for young girls, it should not be something of shame. And I think it starts with, again, the self. And my girls, and even my son knows, are you having your period, mum? Are you menstruating? And we talk about it. It's the shedding of the ovaries and all these kind of things. So they know the realistic side of things, but they also know the energy side of things. And when I actually embraced my cycles, it was, before that, they hurt. I was always in so much pain. I'd wake up crying, pop some pills, and go back to sleep. When I met a homeopath, he also did a lot of energy work. He helped me heal that pain, because what I didn't understand was a woman has a week or however many days, a month to release what no longer serves you. So all the energy that is stored up in your uterus, that's our creative space, our base chakra. And when we allow ourselves to honour that process, we release that energetical suppression of hurt, anger, disappointment, whatever it is, and we release that in a physical way. But and if we ignore that,
then we store it, and that's where our pain comes from, and that's where our reproductive issues come from, because as we know, we're energy first, physical second, and so when those physical symptoms show up, we have to ask what was blocked in that to start with. What am I disconnected to within that space? So this is a journey that I explored, and I highly recommend, if you're on this journey, to continue, and if you haven't, start. Because embracing all of your body, the energy, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the emotional, you become an empowered and beautiful woman that you are radiating throughout the whole world. And I'm not joking in that when you come into yourself, the radiance and that ripple is energetic. You don't even have to say anything, but you create that change just by being you, and it's worth the journey.
Just a funny little incident which also talks about how we raise our kids and how we don't share these things with our boys. So we have, Anu and I are friends, and we have a friend called Aditi Gupta. Her name is also Aditi. She has co-founded a comic book which explains the young children menstruation. It's called Menstrupedia. Okay, and her husband now, then boyfriend, they were studying at National Institute of Design, NID. So her boyfriend was in her 20s, and Aditi used to have very severe cramps during her periods. And so one fine day they talked about it, and she said that, you know, I'm on my periods. And he just didn't know about it. So he said, wait, so you mean you bleed every month? She's like, well, yes, all girls do. He's like, no, my mother and my sister have never bleeded. She's like, no, every month, all girls, all women bleed. And that's when she realized that this is such a big issue. The boy in his 20s did not know that this happens to each girl. And that's when they thought of Menstrupedia, and it's a brilliant comic book right now. But yeah, that's also how we fail at raising our boys rightly. So,
I'd like to add something to what Tammy said about the thing that, oh my god, you know, periods and stuff. So like, you know, there's this thing in India, I believe it's worldwide prevalent. Like whenever girls go and get tampons or those sanitary pads, they always wrap it in newspapers and black quality. I always discourage that. If I ever have to go buy sanitary pads for my sister, I'm like, give it to me open. Give it to me the way it is. It's already packaged. I don't need a newspaper and a black quality paper. Nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of. Just carry it the way it is.
awesome.
It's but this is, it's just so mind-blowing that something so natural is condemned as something bad.
I was just going to share, I was just telling her that right before I left home, I was explaining menstrual cycles to my 7-year-old son. So he wanted, you know, we were just sitting in the room and something was happening, and I said, well, he said, well, what is this for? And I remember I've always glazed over it. It's like, oh, that's nothing for you, don't worry about it. And then we sat down and had this full conversation. I explained what it was, how it happens, what it's for, what you know, where the origins come from. And he started crying. He was like, oh, and he was like, I don't want you to bleed. I don't want you to bleed. And I was like, no, don't cry. I said, it's beautiful because that's how we create life. And I started, you know, expanding the conversation. He was like, oh, because he was thinking about people in his life, and he started thinking about his cousins, and he was like, well, she's 12. That means that if she hasn't got it already, she will be bleeding soon. And I was like, it's okay. And he's just crying. He's like, Mommy, I don't want anyone I love to bleed every month. And I was like, yeah, it's every month. But now he understands. So now it's great because I don't feel like that shadow that I had to kind of put over him, that I felt like I had to put over him, is lifted. You know.
Oh, we've been having such a good time.
Have we finished?
Jamie, what time is it? No, it's 3:41. You've got 4 minutes.
Does anyone else want to
Can I
share?
just share something? Because not that this is becoming, you know, the menstruation discussion, but
It's a good discussion.
but it's a great discussion. But I wanted to share that in Australia, Men, politicians, how many years ago, Tammy? 18 years ago, they created a tax. And what they did was they didn't consult the community, and they made tampons and menstrual pads have a 10% GST, a goods and services tax. None of the men products had this same tax, only for women. So it was more expensive for us to go to a store and buy something that we needed every month. So it was outraged, but nobody did anything about it for, I can't remember, let's say 10 plus years. Nobody did anything about it. Finally, one woman just recently decided enough was enough. And so she petitioned Malcolm Turnbull, who was our prime minister at the time, in a pub and said, this has got to stop. It's not right. And do you know what? It was changed. Like 5 months ago, they finally said, we lift that tax, we don't have to pay tax anymore. And it was just, so, you know, so you can be the change that you want to see.
Yeah.